Title: The House Renovation. My Wife's Revenge. Chapter 1. The Trip. I never thought I'd be telling this story. Not like this. The last thing I ever wanted was to be the kind of husband who hid things, kept secrets, or lied to his wife. But here I am, carrying my suitcase, a phone buzzing with messages from someone else, and a nagging feeling that I'd soon regret every choice that led me here. I had no idea what Lily, my wife, had planned. But as I walked out the door, she didn't say anything, didn't even hint that she knew. In fact, she'd been the one who'd encouraged this trip. "You need it, Alex," she'd said. "Just go, unwind a little. We can catch up when you're back." Her words almost made me laugh. She had no idea what I'd been up to lately, or so I thought. I'd met Sarah about 6 months ago at a work event. She was witty, a little unpredictable, and made me feel something I hadn't felt in a while, wanted. Not in the warm, comforting way Lily did, but in a thrilling, dangerous way that pulled me back to when life felt exciting. I told myself it wasn't hurting anyone, that it was all harmless. But I knew deep down it wasn't. As I was heading out, Lily helped me with my bags. She wrapped her arms around me, gave me that soft, familiar smile, and said, "Promise me you'll let yourself relax, okay? Don't worry about anything back home. We'll be here when you're ready." Her words felt heavy, like they meant more than I was ready to understand. I brushed off the feeling, patted her on the back, and made a joke, one that still haunts me. "With all the time I'll be away, you'll be ready for a total house renovation by the time I'm back." She just smiled, almost sadly, and kissed me goodbye. As I drove away, I couldn't help but feel something was off, but I ignored it. I had Sarah to text, my buddies to meet. Lily would never know. She'd made this trip sound like a gift, and maybe it was one. Maybe it was her way of letting me be someone else for a weekend. So, I did just that. I left, free of guilt, without looking back. That first night, I texted Sarah, telling her all the things I couldn't say out loud. I was someone else with her, and I convinced myself that I needed that maybe we both deserved a little break from the routines we were stuck in. We laughed, made plans to meet up soon, and while my friends were around me, drinking and talking, I was lost in my own little world with Sarah. But Lily kept texting too, sending little updates from home. She told me she was working on a surprise for me. She said she was fixing up the house while I was away. I thought she meant it literally, a fresh coat of paint, maybe some rearranged furniture. I had no idea she was talking about something much, much bigger. At first, I'd reply with something casual, something friendly. "I'm sure you'll do a great job, babe," I'd write. "Can't wait to see it." But soon, the responses became half-hearted, just excuses to get her off my mind so I could focus on the weekend, on Sarah, and on anything that wasn't home. I started avoiding her texts, telling myself I deserved to check out just this once. Lily's surprise could wait. By the second day, I was completely immersed in my own world. The guilt that had nagged me on the drive was nowhere to be found. It felt like a mini escape, a taste of the freedom I'd lost without realizing it. I told myself I could just go back and things would pick up where they left off. That's what we did, wasn't it? We moved past things, even if we didn't always talk about them. But Lily was always one step ahead of me, even when I thought she was the oblivious one. What I didn't know was that each time I hit send on a text to Sarah, each time I answered her calls instead of Lily's, Lily was planning something bigger than I could ever have imagined. She wasn't oblivious at all. On the morning of the last day, as I was packing my bags, Sarah called. She laughed when I said I'd be home soon, a teasing laugh, like she knew she had a piece of me I'd never get back. I was thrilled and terrified all at once, but I pushed it all aside, telling myself I'd figure it out later. After all, Lily would be there, waiting for me, with that surprise she'd been hinting at all weekend. As I got back to my car, I shot her a final text, saying I'd be home soon and couldn't wait to see what she'd done with the place. And still, I had no idea. I just assumed she'd have painted a wall or two, maybe bought some new decorations, something nice and sweet like she always did. In that last message, I told her, half jokingly, "You won't even recognize the place when I'm back." I pictured her smiling, that warm, familiar smile, waiting for me with open arms. But that image was as far from reality as I was from understanding what she had planned. Because by the time I got home, the house was indeed unrecognizable. And in each room, Lily had left me more than just a renovation. She'd left a trail, a painful reminder of every betrayal I'd thought I'd kept hidden. Chapter 2. First Impressions. I pulled into the driveway, feeling more relaxed than I had in months. The trip with the guys had been exactly what I needed. Drinks, laughs, no responsibilities, no worries. Well, no real worries. The guilt I'd felt when I left had been shoved deep enough down that it didn't bother me anymore. Sarah's texts had stopped coming after I told her I was heading back, which made the drive home feel quieter, almost too quiet. Still, I shrugged it off. I had a wife who adored me, a house I loved, and my weekend of fun was now just a memory. Time to get back to normal. As I got out of the car, I noticed the yard looked different. The flowers along the walkway seemed freshly planted, the hedges trimmed, almost as if Lily had taken up a sudden interest in gardening. She never liked that kind of thing, though. She used to say she didn't have the patience for it. I slung my bag over my shoulder and walked toward the front door, ready to toss my keys on the counter and collapse into our comfortable couch. But when I reached the front steps, I stopped. The mat in front of the door wasn't ours. The old one, the one we'd picked out together with "Welcome Home" in cursive, was gone. In its place was something much bolder. I stared at it, heart skipping a beat. "Cheaters not welcome." I froze. The words jumped out at me, taunting, mocking. Was this some kind of joke? I let out a nervous laugh, glancing around, half expecting someone to jump out and say, "Gotcha." But no one did. The street was quiet, the neighbors' houses dark, except for one. Mrs. Holloway, our neighbor, was kneeling in her front yard, hands buried in the soil, planting something by the sidewalk. She looked up, caught my eye, and smiled. There was something off about that smile. It wasn't the usual polite nod. It was knowing, amused even. "You're going to love the surprises she's left for you," she said, her tone so casual, like we were discussing the weather. I tried to play it cool, forcing a grin. "What surprises?" I asked, my voice faltering just a little. "Oh, you'll see," she replied, standing up and wiping her hands on her gardening apron. "Lily's been busy." Something inside me twisted. I knew Mrs. Holloway. She wasn't one for small talk, and she definitely wasn't the type to joke around. I nodded awkwardly, giving her a small wave before turning back to the door. I fumbled with my keys, still trying to convince myself it was nothing, that Lily had just played a weird prank on me. But when I shoved the key into the lock, it didn't turn. I twisted harder, the metal scraping uselessly inside the lock. I tried again, and again. Panic started creeping up my spine. The lock had been changed. "What the hell?" I muttered, stepping back from the door. This didn't make sense. I hadn't forgotten to pay the bills. I hadn't gotten into any fights with Lily before I left. Why would she change the locks? I knocked, the sound of my fist echoing against the door. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. Mrs. Holloway's words lingered in my mind. "You're going to love the surprises." I didn't love this. Not one bit. I pulled out my phone and called Lily. Straight to voicemail. I texted her, something casual at first. "Hey, I'm home. The lock's not working." Did something happen? I waited, watching the screen, hoping for those 3 dots to appear, but nothing came. Then I noticed it. Through the front window, I could see into the living room, and everything was different. The furniture was rearranged, but that wasn't what stopped me. No, it was what was hanging on the walls. I moved closer, pressing my face to the glass, squinting to make sure I wasn't seeing things. Framed on the wall, like artwork, were text messages. My text messages. Messages to Sarah. My stomach twisted into knots. They were blown up, printed out, and hung like trophies. My eyes scanned the words I had once sent without a second thought. "Can't wait to see you again, babe," and "Lily doesn't suspect a thing." The timestamp was clear as day. My breath caught in my throat. How long had she known? This wasn't just a prank. This was revenge. I stumbled backward, away from the window, heart racing. The doormat, the changed locks, the framed texts, it all crashed over me like a wave. She knew. Lily knew everything. and she had turned our home into a museum of my betrayal. Frantically, I called her again, but the phone rang through to voicemail. I stared at the house, the place where we'd shared so many happy moments, and realized how much had changed in just one weekend. My gut churned as I tried to make sense of it all. How long had she been planning this? What else had she done while I was gone? I needed to get inside. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it looked. Maybe this was her way of forcing me to face the truth. Maybe I could talk to her, explain things, make her understand that it didn't mean anything. But even as those thoughts crossed my mind, I knew they were weak, hollow excuses. Just as I was about to call her again, I noticed something else, a small piece of paper tucked under the new doormat. I bent down, hands shaking, and pulled it out. In Lily's handwriting, it simply said, "Enter if you're ready for the truth." I stared at the note, pulse pounding in my ears. Whatever was inside that house wasn't just a renovation. It was a reckoning, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what I'd find. With one last glance at Mrs. Holloway, still watching me from her yard, I slid the note into my pocket, knowing there was no turning back now. Chapter 3. Locked out and looking in. The uneasy laugh I'd forced earlier was gone. As I stood outside my own front door, key useless in my hand, something shifted inside me. The humor, the disbelief, it had all evaporated. Now there was only cold panic. The new lock stared back at me, mocking me, as if to say, "You don't live here anymore." I dropped my hand from the doorknob and stepped back, peering through the nearest window. The living room inside was transformed, and not in the way I had imagined. The couch, once a place for quiet evenings, had been pushed to the far wall. The shelves were cleared of the family photos we'd once proudly displayed. Instead, something else hung on the walls, something that made my heart sink. It was a screenshot, a framed message, my message. The words, frozen in black text on white, were unmistakable. "Miss you already. Can't wait to see you again." Sent to Sarah. I stared at it, my mind racing, scrambling to catch up. How? How did Lily get this? The panic surged in my chest, pressing harder with every second. I leaned closer, trying to convince myself that I was mistaken, that somehow this wasn't real, but the rest of the room came into focus. More frames lined the walls, each containing pieces of the secret I thought I'd buried. Every lie, every excuse, every text I'd sent to Sarah had been carefully printed, framed, and arranged like exhibits in a museum of my failure. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. I grabbed it, fingers trembling, and dialed. Lily again. The phone rang once, then twice, then went straight to voicemail. "Damn it, Lily," I muttered under my breath as I glanced back through the window, my eyes scanning for more evidence. This wasn't some small discovery. She knew everything. And from the look of it, she had known for a while. I left a quick message, trying to sound calm. "Hey, Lily, it's me. I'm home, but I think there's something wrong with the door. Listen, I'm not sure what's going on, but we need to talk. Please call me back." I hung up and immediately regretted how forced and casual it sounded. I dialed again, this time my voice more strained. "Lily, I don't know what's going on, but this is insane. Just call me back. We need to talk. You're acting crazy." That last part slipped out before I could stop it, and I winced. Calling her crazy wasn't going to help, but I couldn't erase the words now, and as I dropped the phone back into my pocket, the house loomed larger than before, as though it had become something else entirely, something dangerous. I turned around, scanning the yard, half expecting to see Lily or Mrs. Holloway smirking again, watching me squirm. But the street was empty. It was just me, the house, and whatever nightmare Lily had crafted inside. I tried the back door next. Same thing. The key wouldn't fit. I tried peeking through more windows, but every room told the same story. My infidelity, displayed in broad daylight. My stomach churned, nausea rising as the reality of it sank in. Lily wasn't home, but she'd left me here, locked out, forced to look in and confront everything I'd done. I thought back to every lie I'd told her, every late-night text I'd sent to Sarah, believing I could keep the two parts of my life separate. But it was all collapsing now. Chapter 4. Inside, out of place. Defeated and desperate, I circled back to the front of the house. That's when I noticed the piece of paper sticking out from under the doormat. I crouched down and pulled it free, my heart pounding in my chest. The message was written in Lily's neat handwriting. Enter if you're ready for the truth. A wave of dread washed over me. What the hell was she planning? But there was no turning back now. I lifted the mat, and there it was, a spare key. Slowly, I slid the key into the lock, half expecting the door to remain sealed. But this time, it turned. The click echoed in the silence around me, and the door creaked open. Stepping inside, I was hit with a sickening familiarity laced with dread. This was my home, our home, but it didn't feel like it anymore. The air was heavy, thick with accusation. The living room had been transformed into a gallery of betrayal. Photos of Sarah and me, the ones I thought no one had ever seen, were hung beside wedding pictures of Lily and me. The contrast was like a knife twisting in my gut. Every happy moment from our marriage, our wedding, anniversaries, holidays, was now displayed alongside the secrets I'd hidden. I walked deeper into the room, eyes darting between the framed texts and the photos. One particular message, blown up and mounted above the mantel, stopped me in my tracks. It read, "All for one lie?" I stared at it, the weight of that single question crushing me. I wanted to scream, to call Lily and beg her to stop this twisted punishment. But I couldn't. I knew it was too late for that. My eyes landed on the coffee table, where a small, leather-bound book lay open. I picked it up, hands shaking, and read the title, Rebuilding Trust. A note was taped to the front. Maybe you'll understand this one day. I dropped the book back on the table, the room closing in around me. This wasn't just about exposing my affair. It was about tearing apart everything I had built with her. Every corner of this house now bore the weight of my deception. I sank onto the couch, staring at the mess of my life laid out before me. She turned our home into a prison of guilt, and there was no escaping it. This was my punishment, and I hadn't even begun to feel something entirely different, something terrifying. The walls were covered in papers, taped in neat rows, organized by date. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at, but then my eyes settled on the familiar words, the messages I had sent to Sarah, the conversations I thought I had hidden so well. They were all there. Every text, every email, every flirty comment, taped to the walls like a cruel timeline of my betrayal. I stood there, frozen, my mind reeling. She knew. She knew everything. The carefully organized dates showed just how long she had known. I tried to think back. How far back did this go? How long had she been living with this knowledge, letting me lie to her face, while she built this room of evidence against me? I walked slowly along the walls, reading the messages I had once sent so carelessly. I miss you, babe. Can't wait to see you again. Lily's clueless. She has no idea. The words were like daggers, each one cutting deeper than the last. My legs felt weak, and I sank into the chair in the middle of the room, staring up at the evidence of my infidelity. The weight of it all was crushing. How could I have been so stupid? So reckless? On the far wall, one message stood out among the rest, written in Lily's hand. Sometimes, understanding your mistakes is punishment enough. I closed my eyes, sinking deeper into the chair. She had laid it all out. Every lie, every secret. She had done it in a way that left me no room to deny, no room to make excuses. There was nothing I could say to explain away the evidence staring back at me. Lily had known all along, and now she was making sure I would never forget. In that moment, I realized something. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about forcing me to confront the full weight of what I had done. To her, to us. This was the punishment she had chosen for me, and it was worse than anything I could have imagined. Chapter 7. Seeking Closure. I stumbled out of the evidence room, my heart hammering in my chest. The walls closing in on me felt more real with each step I took. I had to find Lily. I had to talk to her, explain myself, though I had no idea what I would even say. My mind was racing, desperate for answers, desperate for a chance to fix this somehow. But where was she? Why wasn't she answering? I grabbed my phone and called her again, pacing around the living room like a trapped animal. Straight to voicemail. Lily, please, we need to talk. I don't know what all this is, but we can figure it out. Just call me back, okay? My voice cracked at the end, and I hated how weak I sounded. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. I needed to find her, see her face, beg for forgiveness if I had to. My mind jumped to her sister's place. She always went to Melanie's when she needed space or someone to talk to. It was worth a shot. I rushed out of the house, barely locking the door behind me. The drive to Melanie's felt agonizingly slow, even though I sped the entire way. Every second was filled with thoughts of what I could say to make this right. Could I promise to change? Could I somehow convince her that we could fix this? I wasn't even sure if I believed it myself. When I pulled up to Melanie's house, her car wasn't in the driveway. The house looked quiet, lights off. I knocked on the door anyway, banging louder each time. No answer. I backed away, feeling the panic rise in my chest again. Maybe she wasn't here. Maybe she had gone somewhere else. I fumbled for my phone, calling Melanie's number this time. No answer. Damn it. I called a few of our mutual friends, one after another, hoping someone had seen her or knew where she was. But every call was met with the same thing: cold politeness, awkward pauses, and then an excuse to get off the phone. They all knew, and none of them wanted to help me. My guilt hung in the air between us like a storm cloud. Finally, I called my old friend, Dan. He picked up after a few rings, and for a moment, I felt a sliver of hope. Dan, thank God. I need your help. Do. Full weight of it yet. Chapter 5. Into Memory Lane. I couldn't stand being in the living room anymore. The gallery of my lies and deceit hanging on the walls felt suffocating, and the longer I stood there, the more unbearable it became. I needed to move, to breathe. My feet carried me up the stairs, heart pounding in my chest, unsure of what fresh hell awaited me in the other rooms of our home. The hallway felt endless, each step echoing louder than the last. The familiar creak in the floorboard near the bedroom door should have been comforting, but now it felt eerie. The air was thick, almost heavy with tension. I reached for the bedroom door and paused, taking a deep breath before slowly pushing it open. Our bedroom was different. Not drastically, but in small, deliberate ways that made my skin crawl. It was as if everything had been carefully arranged, with a quiet purpose behind every move. The bed was neatly made, pillows propped up perfectly, but my eyes were drawn to the center of the bed, where two pillows lay side by side, embroidered with words that twisted my stomach into knots. On one pillow, our wedding vows were stitched in delicate cursive. I promise to love you, honor you, and stay true to you forever. It was the same vow I'd made to her all those years ago. I remembered standing before her, looking into her eyes, saying those words with every intention of keeping them. But the second pillow mocked me. Broken. The harsh, simple word was embroidered in bold letters next to the vows, and it hit me like a punch to the gut. I stared at it, unable to look away, the weight of what I'd done crashing down on me all over again. How long had she been planning this? How long had she been carrying the pain of knowing what I'd done? I turned away from the bed, needing to escape, but the reminders followed me. On the nightstand, where Lily once kept a picture of us from our honeymoon, was a single candle, unlit, labeled False Promises. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd made plenty of those. I moved toward the dresser, my hands shaking as I ran them over the familiar wood, remembering how many times I'd watched Lily get ready for bed, laughing, smiling, completely unaware of the wrecking ball I'd brought into our lives. I noticed a journal sitting on top, open to a specific page. I didn't have to read it to know it was hers. She used to write in that journal all the time. Notes about her day, letters to herself, and sometimes to me. But this page was different. She had left it open, just for me to see. I hesitated before leaning down to read it, and as my eyes scanned the words, the guilt I had been trying to bury came rushing back. I love him, it read. I love him more than anything. I trust him. I trust us. We're stronger than anything that could ever come between us. My chest tightened as I swallowed hard, the words blurring slightly as tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. She had written this before everything. She had believed in us so much, and I had destroyed that. I had taken her trust and thrown it away like it meant nothing. Lily's voice echoed in my mind, soft but piercing. Everything in this house once had a meaning, until you stripped it all away. I could almost hear the hurt in her voice, the sadness that I hadn't seen, hadn't cared to see. And now it was too late. Chapter 6. The Evidence Room. I stumbled out of the bedroom, my heart racing, desperate to escape the suffocating reminders of my broken promises. My feet carried me down the hall to the spare bedroom, the one we barely used, until now. The door was slightly ajar, and something about it sent a shiver down my spine. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the knob. I didn't want to go in. I didn't want to see what was waiting for me on the other side of that door. But I had no choice. This was my punishment. I pushed the door open, my breath catching in my throat as I stepped inside. The room was no longer the quiet, forgotten space it had once been. Lily had transformed it into. You know where Lily is? There was a pause on the other end. Then he sighed. Alex, I'm not getting involved in this. What? Dan, come on. I need to talk to her. She's doing all this crazy. She's not crazy, Alex. He cut me off. This is her journey now. She's showing you a new kind of strength. I don't think you get that yet. What does that even mean? I snapped, my frustration boiling over. I'm her husband. I deserve to talk to her. Dan's voice was calm, almost pitying. Maybe, but you've had your chance to talk, Alex. Now it's her turn to show you what she's been feeling. Maybe you should listen. The words hit me hard, the weight of them sinking into my chest. I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out. Dan's voice softened. Whatever she's doing, man, it's not about you anymore. It's about her, and you're going to have to face that. He hung up, leaving me standing there, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding in my chest. I stared down at the screen. The call ended, the weight of everything pressing down on me. This wasn't just about her punishing me. This was about her reclaiming herself, and I was being left behind. Chapter 8. The Kitchen Showdown. I drove back to the house, my mind a swirling mess of confusion, anger, and guilt. I had no idea what to do next, no idea how to fix this. The evidence room, the messages, the walls full of reminders. I couldn't even begin to process it. All I knew was that Lily had ripped apart the life we'd built together, and I had to understand why. When I stepped back inside, the air felt colder, heavier. The house was silent, except for the sound of my own breathing. I wandered aimlessly through the rooms, not knowing where to go, not knowing what to expect, until I found myself in the kitchen. And there it was. A massive banner hung across the room, draped from wall to wall. The words, bold and clear, hit me like a hammer. Not the man I married. I stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the banner. I had no words, no thoughts, just a sinking feeling of finality. Beneath the banner, sitting on the counter, was a letter. My name was scrawled on the front in Lily's handwriting. I picked it up, my hands trembling, and unfolded the paper. As I read, each word cut deeper than the last. Alex, it began. I've spent too long carrying the weight of your lies, and now it's time for you to carry them. I know everything. I know about Sarah. I know about all the secrets you thought you could keep from me. And I know that you never thought I'd be strong enough to confront you. But I found my strength. And now, I'm choosing myself over this marriage. I'm done pretending we can fix this. You broke us, and I'm leaving you with the pieces. I swallowed hard, my chest tightening as I read the next part. I've taken my half of everything. I'm starting over, and I'm doing it without you. Consider this my healing. You'll need to figure out yours. I've left the house for you. What's left of it, anyway. All the memories, all the lies, they belong to you now. Maybe one day you'll understand what you've done. Maybe one day you'll figure out where you went wrong. I could barely breathe as I read the last line. Consider this your real guy's trip, a journey into yourself. Figure out where you went wrong. The letter slipped from my fingers, fluttering to the floor as I stared at the banner, my mind reeling. She was gone. She'd left me. And everything she'd built inside this house, every reminder of what I'd done, was now my burden to bear. I was alone, left to face the wreckage of what I'd destroyed. And this time, there was no one to blame but myself. Chapter 9. The Realization. I stood frozen in the kitchen, staring at the letter on the floor where it had slipped from my hands. The words, "Not the man I married," loomed large on the banner above me, taunting me. Every breath felt shallow, as if the weight of the air in this house, now filled with nothing but my betrayals, was pressing down on my chest. My legs gave out and I sank to the cold tile floor, back against the counter, head hanging between my knees. This wasn't just a revenge plot. It wasn't some elaborate scheme to embarrass me, or a ploy to hurt me back in the same way I'd hurt her. Lily had taken something far more profound. She'd taken back her power. The house, the memories we built, the years of our marriage. She left them all behind, like they were debris from a life she no longer wanted. The worst part was, I had done this. I had turned our marriage into something disposable, and she simply walked away from the wreckage. But not before ensuring I'd be trapped here with it. Her words from the letter rang in my ears like a constant echo. Consider this your real guy's trip, a journey into yourself. Figure out where you went wrong. I always thought I could juggle it all. 2 lives, 2 worlds. There was the life I had with Sarah, the excitement, the thrill of secrecy. And then there was Lily, the stability, the love I'd taken for granted. But now, sitting here in the wreckage of my life, I could see the cold truth. This wasn't about having fun, or even about being unhappy. I'd betrayed her because I wanted more. I wanted everything, without giving up anything. But I had lost it all. I glanced around the kitchen. The banner, the letter, the photos and frames of my affair plastered throughout the house. They were all reflections of the guilt I had tried so hard to avoid. I had spent months, maybe years, convincing myself that what I did with Sarah didn't matter, that it wouldn't affect my life with Lily. I had hidden behind my lies, tucked them away like they were nothing. But Lily had forced me to face every single one. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She didn't even confront me. There was no dramatic showdown, no tears or rage-filled speeches about trust. Instead, she did something far worse. She left me to confront myself. My mind raced with all the times Lily had spoken to me about trust, about loyalty. She used to say, "Trust isn't something you're given, it's something you earn, every day." I hadn't listened. I hadn't thought it applied to me, not in the way it did to others. In my arrogance, I believed I was exempt from those rules, that I could slip through the cracks without consequence. But now, her silence echoed louder than any confrontation ever could. Her absence was like a void swallowing me whole, and the weight of her decision to leave was heavier than I could bear. I could picture her standing in the kitchen where I sat now, cooking dinner while she quietly worried, quietly wondered if the man she loved was still faithful. How many nights had she stood in this very spot, piecing together the truth, knowing I was lying to her, but too hurt to confront me. And now that she confronted me in the most devastating way possible, she was gone. I pulled my phone from my pocket, staring at the dark screen. For a split second, I thought about calling her again, begging her to talk, to explain, to give me a chance to fix this. But I knew there was nothing left to fix. Lily was already gone, and whatever hope I had of making amends went with her. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message. My heart leapt in my chest, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe, it was Lily. Maybe she had decided to talk, to give me a chance. I opened the message. It was from her. "The burden is yours now. See if you can bear it." The weight of those words crushed me. This wasn't just about her leaving. She had made sure that every piece of guilt, every ounce of shame, would stay with me, haunt me. The house, our home, had become a prison, filled with reminders of my betrayal. And she had designed it that way. She wanted me to live with the consequences of what I had done, alone, with no one to shift the blame to. She had stripped me of every excuse I might have made, every rationalization I might have clung to. I looked around again, at the kitchen that was once filled with laughter and the warmth of a life built together. Now it was empty. The banner, the letter, the photos, they were all just remnants of a life I had shattered with my own hands. And now, I had to carry that weight. Alone, I leaned my head back against the counter, staring up at the ceiling, feeling the cold tiles beneath me. How had it come to this? How had I allowed myself to become this person? I had been so blind, so arrogant, thinking I could have everything without ever paying the price. But Lily had made sure I would pay. And the price was my guilt, my shame, my loss. Her final message echoed in my mind. The burden is yours now. See if you can bear it. Could I bear it? Could I live with this, day after day, knowing I had destroyed everything? Knowing that I had betrayed the only person who ever truly loved me? I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of it all settle on my chest like a stone. This was my punishment. This was the life I had chosen. And there was no escape. I was alone, trapped in the ruins of what I had broken. And I would have to live with it. Every single day. Chapter 10. The Open-Ended Departure. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting a somber glow across the living room, Alex sits on the edge of the couch, surrounded by silence that feels almost deafening. The remnants of Lily's presence linger in the air. A half-empty coffee cup on the kitchen counter, her favorite book left open on the table, and a framed photograph of the two of them from happier times, now a painful reminder of his choices. The atmosphere is thick with regret as he stares at the walls, which seem to close in on him, a physical manifestation of the emotional weight he now carries. Each room he wanders through serves as a ghostly echo of their life together. The bedroom, once a sanctuary filled with laughter and intimacy, now feels cold and foreign. The sheets are still unmade, a stark reminder of the mornings they shared. He stands there, looking at the empty side of the bed, and feels a pang of longing for the warmth that has been replaced by an unbearable void. He recalls the moments when they talked about their dreams and aspirations, now tainted by the reality of betrayal. The memories flood back, her laughter, the way she'd smile at him with genuine love. He opens the closet and sees her clothes hanging neatly, untouched. It's as if he can feel her essence lingering in the fabric, the sense of her perfume still clinging to her favorite dress. The realization strikes him. She has truly moved on, leaving behind a physical reminder of what he has lost. It's a tormenting contrast. While she thrives, he is left in this house, a monument to his mistakes. The walls whisper secrets of the past, and he finds himself replaying every moment that led to this point. How did it come to this? The missed opportunities, the arrogance that made him think he could have it all without consequence. With each step through the house, he's confronted by the ghosts of their shared life, the laughter now replaced with silence. Sinking to the floor, he feels the weight of his choices crushing him. It becomes clear that Lily's departure is not just a loss. It's a quiet but powerful act of revenge. In leaving, she has stripped him of his foundation, leaving him to grapple with the reality of his actions. The emotional burden he bears is heavier than any physical possession she could have taken with her. She has left him with a truth he can no longer escape. The understanding that trust, once shattered, cannot be easily repaired, and love cannot flourish in the absence of respect and honesty. As darkness envelopes the house, Alex understands that the punishment she has imposed is not one of anger, but rather a profound lesson in loss. He is left to confront the emptiness, realizing that the space she once filled with joy is now a reminder of his failure. The finality of her departure weighs heavily on him, and in this solitude, he begins to truly grasp the depth of his loss. Epilogue. Months trickle by, each day blurring into the next as Alex attempts to pick up the pieces of his life. The once vibrant home has become a mausoleum of memories, haunting him at every turn. He throws himself into work, trying to distract himself, but the ache of Lily's absence seeps into every corner of his existence. Every room carries her imprint. In the kitchen, he can still hear her humming as she cooked, the playful banter they shared over meals echoing in his mind. The living room, where they spent countless evenings wrapped in each other's arms, now feels like a cold stage where a play has ended, the audience long gone. Even as he tries to move on, each new encounter with friends or family feels shadowed by the ghost of his past. He notices how their conversations shift when they mention Lily, how they tread lightly, afraid to bring up the wound that still festers within him. He realizes they see the pain he tries to mask, a pain that seems to grow heavier with each passing day. The lessons Lily left him with weigh heavily on his heart. He's haunted by the understanding that trust, once lost, is a fragile thing. He reflects on the moments when he took her for granted, thinking she would always be there. And now he's faced with the reality that he might never experience such love again. Just when he thinks he might finally begin to heal, a familiar sound breaks the monotonous silence of his life, the ping of a text message. He hesitates, his heart racing as he picks up his phone, hope flickering for a moment. The screen lights up, revealing a message from her, seemingly out of nowhere. "Have you found what you were looking for?" The words hang in the air, a bittersweet reminder of the journey he has traveled since her departure. They offer no easy answers, no comfort, just a poignant question that forces him to confront the truth he has been avoiding. He realizes he has not yet found what he sought, and the weight of that acknowledgement settles deep within him. The story closes on this note of unresolved longing, leaving Alex with the understanding that while he may never fully regain what he lost, the journey toward redemption and self-discovery has only just begun.